This YouTube is entitled 9 out of 10 Questions Don't Need an Answer. Do you sense that some questions are not really asking a question? You sense that the question is piggybacking another meaning other than that indicated by the words? If it's not a question, what is it? The something the question asker is seeking is recognition, stimulation, excitement, or demonstrating that they're one up on the person called upon to answer. Questions can be classified into 3 categories: message, getcha, and answer seeking. Message questions account for about 45% of questions asked. Message questions carry an underlying message. They often begin with phrases such as, "Don't you think? Have you ever considered? Since? What would happen if?" What does the asker want? The asker of the message question is looking for support for his or her position or idea. Let's look at handling message questions. An effective way to deal with the message question is to agree with it, thereby supporting or affirming the asker. When the question is expressing an idea or opinion that is unacceptable or wrong, it's still important to personally recognize the asker of the question in some positive way. For example, you can say, "I sense that you've given this some thought. I share your concern, and what I think is." Getcha questions account for about 45% of questions asked. Getcha questions are actually games in a behavioral sense. The question is asked to reveal a flaw in the speaker, his or her opinion or position. The goal of the Getcha questioner is to be one-up by making the answer appear inadequate or to show anxiety, embarrassment, guilt, or anger. Getcha question dynamics. The Getcha questioner is trying to toss somebody else a hot potato of anger, fear, or woe. People who catch the hot potato may change it from anger to anxiety or get angry themselves. When you're feeling internal discomfort or negativity, you need to de-escalate the negative emotion. Remember, you're a human being experiencing a rush of brain chemicals that are useful to warn of danger, but get in the way of keeping cool. Getcha questions often begin with why or how come. Getcha questions are predictable. It's not necessary to become defensive and fall into the trap set by a Getcha questioner because these questions are predictable. Let's look at handling Getcha questions, some basics. In dealing with Getcha questions, it's important to stay in the here and now. Reliving past history is the conversational equivalent of walking into a minefield. It's very difficult to change people's perceptions about what's past. You can agree and disagree, that is, agreeing with part of the point being made and then differ with the question by presenting factual evidence, differences of opinion, or your own feelings. You can disarm a Getcha questioner by saying, "I give up," or "You got me," or "You're right." Such admissions depend on whether the questioner is correct and whether it's appropriate to make an admission. Another way to deal with a Getcha questioner is to redefine the question in terms of a message that you want to get across. Have in mind the message you want to convey and do not restate the negativity of the questioner. So if you're asked, "When did you stop beating your wife?" question, you can talk about your family or your convictions on civil liberties. You can ask the Getcha questioner to talk about what's really bothering him or her. Or you can ask a disarming question of the asker. Sometimes you will need to confront the Getcha questioner by asking, "Are you trying to start a fight with me? If we keep this up, the next thing we know we'll be out in the hall at each other's throats." With an angry person, you can find something to compliment, such as, "We're glad to live in a community where people care about their environment," or "I am glad to see people willing to commit themselves to ideals they believe in." It may be necessary to repeat this as many as 3 or 4 times. Once you've acknowledged the Getcha asker and his point without hostility, There are not many places left for him or her to go. Humor can be used to effectively in dealing with Getcha questioners. Here's an incident in which Lloyd George, the fiery Welshman and Prime Minister of England, skillfully handled in a parliamentary campaign. A major campaign issue was Home Rule, and Mr. George, who was a Home Rule advocate, was exhorting an audience with Home Rule for India, Home Rule for Ireland, when a burly man at the back of the crowd stood up and shouted angrily, Home Rule for hell. George paused and then retorted, that's right, each man for his own country. Answer-seeking questions. The answer-seeking question is the only one in which the questioner is truly looking for an answer. The answer being sought may be facts, opinions, or the sharing of feelings. Answer-seeking questions account for only about 1 of 10 questions asked. Questions beginning with how are frequently answer-seeking. As a rule, in answering, make your most important point first, particularly if you're speaking with the media. The key to picking up whether a question is carrying a message, seeking to put you down, or asking for an answer is by focusing on the way it's asked. Voice tone, facial expression, postures, and gestures are indicators of hidden messages. People can often tell a Getcha question by the feeling they get in the pit of their stomachs. Learn to identify what kind of question is being asked. If you want to experiment with this, record a meeting or speech followed by questions. Play back the recording several times, including one time in which you turn down the volume so that you listen only to tones. Then check out how many questions need an answer. Now here's another kind of communication, a non-question. When someone shares personal information about their or a family member's challenge with mental health, stay non-judgmental and be supportive. You can say things like, I hear you. I see that this is painful for you to discuss. I understand that this is difficult for you. Thank you for trusting me with this information. It takes courage to speak up. This video is a follow-up to a video entitled How to Talk with Voters. Having actively been a political consultant in Missouri, I was aware of persuading people for change or a candidate benefits from training candidates and campaign workers in how to do it. This video is part of the foundation for the training approach I take. My website is localmarketing.center and email homeplus99@gmail.com. My phone number is 661-242-2624. In closing, keep in mind that to reach consumers and voters today, we must work smarter than marketers and politicians did in past years. I hope these ideas enable you to talk with consumers and voters more effectively.